said that?
No. This thing is wild. Yeah, there is Brodims available, which I should probably get the details off this video. Hello everybody. Luke Hart here, head shaper at Collab, board geek, frother. Glad to have a kind of rest after the start to the year's madness of swells we've just had. Had a couple of days off. Now I'm super depressed because it's stormy, windy, rainy, cold. I'm over it. Bring back the offshores. I know a lot of people have been waiting for this. It is hugely exciting for us in the factory. Surfboard royalty, as far as I'm concerned. Winner of the 2024 STAB, what's it called?
Electric acid test, first up.
Quickly Google it. Bear with.
Electric acid surfboard test.
Winner of the STAB Electric Acid Surfboard Test. Pedestrian Ship by Ryan Lovelace for Dave Rastovich. It is a thing of surfboard design beauty. Look at it, there's so much going on, yet it all makes sense. Ryan, you've done it again. Love this thing. High performance and lots of speed, effortlessly, that word, effort and Leslie at the end. Also quite good for maintaining speed in weaker, slopier waves like where we live. Woohoo! I'm gonna say it again, Ryan's accidentally created another board that I can really see kicking off in the UK. So the story of the shape's pretty simple. I'm sure, unless you live under a rock, that you've seen the STAB acid, I can't remember what it's called again, STAB acid surfboard test. Electric acid surfboard test. Now, the concept is STAB get a surfer, usually of professional ilk, usually of iconic stature, in this case, Dave Rastovich, and then they get a host of different shapers, and all these shapers make Dave Rastovich a board. He surfs all the boards, he picks a winner, and Bob's your uncle. This year, out of all the boards, 12 boards or so that he surfed, the winner was this, Ryan Lovelace's Pedestrian Ship. Obviously, it gained a lot of traction because it was on a global surfing platform. Boards that go well under a good surfer's feet is something really special for a shaper, especially when you haven't worked with that surfer a lot. Knowing what you can and can't get away with, knowing what you should and shouldn't try, all of these sort of things are going to go through your head as to what you can do. And I love the way Ryan's design is pretty fearless, and he nailed it. I'm going to walk you through the concept of the model from what I gather, speaking to Ryan, watching the videos just like you, and then feeling the board, well, shaping the board and feeling the board myself. Conceptually, it's a high-performing twin. Now, I know from Ryan's shapes that this does have similarities to one of his older models, the piggyback. Ryan did mention that he brought the wide point up to give it a bit of a more balanced outline. So what you have visually to the eye for a shaper is something, yeah, lots of downline speed. You don't have to have huge amounts of width in the actual dimensions because you're carrying quite a lot of width through here. Synonymous with sort of performing twin fins, actually. You're stretching out that shape rather than making it shorter. It then pulls down into a nice nose. It's quite a pointy kind of high performance nose. There's nothing overly drastically fishy about the nose in nature. And as it comes down into the tail, you have a really, really soft curve. And there's almost like a slight bumped hip at the back of the fins where the channel comes through, which blades the tail out really, really nicely. So you've got a board that wants to go really, really fast down the line, but isn't too wide through the tail area, so you have quick rail-to-rail response, and doesn't have lots and lots of shoulder in the nose, so you can get really, really nice carves with lots of hold. Into the bottom shape, which I've got to talk about straight away, really. You can't talk about any of this board without saying that the design centers around this channel. The idea of the channel is to give you lift, obviously, with the concave given, V for pivot and looseness off the back foot, and then this kind of flat edge. If you get this wrong, your board never bites in. If you get that right, then you have loads of release at the end of your turns when you're washing off all your speed. And then if you get the rails right, you get to bite back in, engage your fins and blast off again. And that's exactly what Dave Rastovich is doing. So kudos to Ryan, because I've seen a lot of shapes with kind of flat banked rails through here, and they never quite get the bite through the turns. They kind of feel nice and soupy through the turns, but they can lose a little bit of sort of off the mark power when you've done a turn, because you're not getting back on your inside rail quick enough. This board, when you watch Dave Rastovich surf it in pretty like perfectly shaped waves as well, so he's going very, very fast naturally through that line anyway. This is managing to hold through his turns and release at the points he needs it to gain lots and lots of style and fluidity in his surf, and whilst he's surfing really critically. So I love what this channel does. Lots of lift in the entry, flattening out the rocker through the start. So you're going to find it a good paddler, certainly better than a standard high performing shortboard anyway, as it flattens the rocker through the nose with the concave, and then you get that pivot and release through the tail, and that sort of conjoins really nicely with the slightly narrower plan shape, a bit more high performance in nature, and it pulls down into that kind of tighter swallowtail. You've got a pretty relaxed fluid rocker, certainly not flat, but it's, you know, you'd have to say slightly more lift in the entry than a standard fish, given the fact that it's got rail extension. And it's just a nice balance between kind of board engaged on your back foot and then rocker getting out the way so you can perform those more critical turns, gaining speed off your front foot without sort of catching, which again you can see Dave Rastovich doing. The key to this board is that there's lots and lots of squirt, so maintaining speed really isn't an issue, especially for someone like Dave Rastovich. It's really, really cool to watch him surf this, and it does give me that kind of buzz that like, you can, yeah, harnessing speed in flat waves is going to be easier on this board. That's exciting for me as a UK shaper, because more boards like this on the market are going to make more surfers have more fun in our waves, because our waves are really, really fun. You just got to be on the right board. Deckline wise, it's actually quite flat through here, and that maintains quite a lot of the volume sort of here. And then, you know, Ryan does this quite a lot. He drops down his rail to make sure that he's got loads of bite on the rail. So your rail's penetrating the water, but there's not much resistance through the turn. So it stays really nice and loose and fluid when you're doing a turn. So I haven't actually surfed this board yet, which I can't wait to get on one. But I can imagine you knowing it's a Ryan Lovelace when you surf it because of that design feature. You know, he's not scared to pinch those rails out, so you can really knife in with little resistance at speed. It's a beautiful way of gaining a little bit of hold on a surfboard that has a loose fin setup like the twin fin. Nothing too crazy about the fins. They're kind of a little bit further back. You know, the further up you have your fins, the looser the board is. So Ryan's giving you a really nice balance. Putting them a little bit back means you can get back footage, you can plant your foot, and you can put a little bit of energy into those turns. Again, just watch the footage of Dave Rastovich surf it. It's by no means a novel approach to surfing when you watch Dave Rastovich surf this, and Ryan is no stranger to high-performing twin fin fishes. Just have a look at his Will's fish and what Will Aliotti does on it. And I bet Will Aliotti's already ordered himself one of these. In fact, I do have some sneaky inside info, which I won't share names, but there's some really high profile surfers that have ordered this board, and you will be seeing some more content on it soon. I haven't spoke much about the swallow, but it's just a beautiful sort of curved, deep swallow. It's going to give you some pivot, some hold off the bottom, extending your rail lines out to give you some forward drive, but then you are going to get that release that you're seeing through the turns. It works beautifully with this kind of inside V through the channel. The shape of the channel is really interesting to me. One of the ways to get around a corner quicker on a wave, a lot of people think a wave's curvature is in this shape because you're thinking of a barreling wave, but you're actually surfing this way through the face. So technically speaking, you're surfing a convexed kind of curve. So there's been lots of people that have tried designs with in-cuts, because an in-cut, which means a slice cut out of your board around a convex of a curve, will technically get around that corner with little resistance and go faster. So the fact that Ryan's done an in-cut channel makes a lot of sense to the release and hold and lift you're combining together rather than just a straight channel. Maybe it's just aesthetically very pleasing to the eye, but also it makes a lot of sense in design. He's effectively cutting out the fat of your turn whilst giving you lots of speed generation going into that turn, and then the release he's widening the sort of release point by the fins here. You can see it because of the nature of the channel. It's giving you a thicker bar. You can really skate on it, and it's without catching that sort of inside edge. So it's like, it's kind of high performance made easy in a way, using design, which is like, as a board geek, I love that stuff. I don't know, maybe Ryan was thinking about that under design, maybe it was an aesthetic thing, but I can almost guarantee you he knew exactly what he was doing when he used that in-cut channel shape. And obviously widening out the concave in the nose is just going to give you that early entry lift. So paddling, it's going to feel really nice. And as soon as you get up, you're going to have that initial squirt off the front foot, which is basically the secret between easier surfs and harder surfs, especially for people that aren't as good at generating their own power. This is going to do it pretty easily for you, comparative to high performing shortboards. In terms of what you surf it in, I would say the surf that you can surf the pedestrian ship in is pretty varied if you're the right surfer. Meaning, do you ride performance boards? Do you ride your performance board in a host of conditions at home? If so, this is definitely going to go in all of those. I would say this board is going to feel fast, loose and responsive in anything from sort of waist high to, you know, what Dave Rastovich is surfing in, which I would call perfect waves. Overhead, powerful, pockety, barrely, fast-paced waves. It's a real all-rounder for good intermediate plus level surfers who ride performance surfboards. I don't think it's completely out of my... I've got the 511 here, which is just over 30 litres, and yeah, I think I'd have a go on the 6.0, and it's not out of my comfort zone. When you're feeling the board, you've got this pinched rail and you've got this kind of like, you know, like drawn out outline. So your initial reaction looking at the board is like, ooh, that is kind of bladey, and I bet only Dave Rastovich can surf it. When you're feeling it, it has that kind of Ryan magic where there's chunk in the right places. It feels like it can be stable. I can see that it's a good paddler. I will report back when I've surfed it. And what I'll do is I'll do a video with this board when we've made ours. Look, we haven't even made ours yet, so that's how you know how in demand it is. But yeah, I'll make a board and I'll make sure that I get a better surfer to surf it, so it's just not me hacking about on it, and we can talk about the differences. It doesn't feel too high performance, but I would certainly say the surfer looking at this board is good, proficient surfer who likes high performance surfing. This isn't a board for someone who, you know, is riding those kind of 40 litre plus grovelers and, you know, mid-length. I know I'm a mid-length guy, but you know, you certainly got to know what you're signing up for. This is a race car. Within that remit, it's a pretty friendly board. In terms of sizing it, I'd say it's like a head high kind of, head high. God, I never thought I'd say this about one of Ryan's boards, but you can probably go on volume on this board. What volume you'd feel comfortable with. It's not a board that you need to plus size in volume. So for example, if you're riding a 28 litre shortboard, then this between 27 and 29 litres somewhere is going to be your perfect fit. So I would be looking at around head high myself. I'm feeling the 511. I reckon I could give that a whirl, but I think I'd go for the 6.0 just for a little bit more safety. 31.33 litres in the 6.0.
32.44 for the 6.1.
And 32.4 in the 6.1. And there is grapevine talks via Ryan that some bro-friendly dimensions are coming out on the pedestrian ship, which I think is a really good idea. It could be a really fun board for smaller waves if you kind of squashed it out a bit and thickened it up a bit and shortened the rail line. Look out for the Brodims coming soon. In terms of construction, Dave Rastovich surfed this board in a parabolic EPS with flax. We've spoken to Ryan. It's too hard at scale to get that blank, so if you really feel you need the parabolic flex option for your pedestrian ship, get on the list with Ryan. He'll get there eventually, but you can put your custom orders in for Ryan for that blank. He'll order that blank in especially, but for everyone else we are offering it in standard PU, and we are also offering EPS flax options without the parabolic rails, so look out for these two options. I don't have a preference. The way I look at it is it's a performance board, so PU's home. We all know what PU feels like, and I think this board's going to feel amazing in PU, but for everyone else, I ride lots and lots of EPS and I love it for its extra bit of float and its slight more twitchy sort of feedback that it gives you. It gives you a little bit more feedback. It sits a little bit higher in the water, and you know, Rastovich ain't wrong. He's shredding on his EPS version. So I would say that go with your gut, go with what you're used to, what you want to feel out of the board. And if you're kind of not up for trying too much craziness, then bearing in mind that it's going to feel nothing like you've ever surfed before. I would say maybe going for the PU, to be honest, but again, totally open to the thought process that other people could get on really, really well with the EPS versions. In terms of where this board sits in the market, fishy, shortboardy, new school approach, it's kind of its own thing. I mean, anyone who likes fishes is going to love this board. Anyone who wants to feel really, really fluid and likes shortboards is going to love this board. I think it's kind of like the FM. Ryan's done it again. He's kind of, you know, he's found his little slice of genres already out there that means it kind of sits on its own and it would fit a lot of different people. So I'm not sure what his competitors on the market are. I would say it's going to be attracting people who like fluidity and a little bit of sort of progressive stuff combined, and I think that's kind of where surfing's going. That's why we all love watching Victor Bernardo and William Aliotti and John Florence and Ethan Ewing, these kind of like connected fluid surfers. Boards like this kind of probably make that kind of style a little bit more attainable in a wide range of conditions for sort of slightly lesser talent maybe, given that those guys are the very best surfers in the world. Quite an exciting little mix. It's something that I certainly got my shaping juices flowing. I'm really excited. I've been shaping this quite a bit now. It's an exciting board to shape. It feels like it's a goer, you know. I can't explain that. I try to put that into words in videos quite a lot, but it's hard to know. But there's some boards that are just timelessly lovely to feel in the bay, and this is definitely one of them. It's a spaceship and it's also a classic car, and it's like, how do I even get that into words? That's what it is, and I know people are going to love it because it's just, it makes so much sense even though it looks so crazy. It's funny, he's done it again. So there's going to be subtleties you can bring into it to sort of make it yours and giving it the personality that you want to feel when you're surfing it, and you can do that with size, construction and fins. It's a really exciting board. I can't wait to hear more feedback on it. I absolutely cannot wait to surf it. That is the Pedestrian Ship Ryan Lovelace on the Love Machine range, available to custom order now and in racks at all the amazing Love Machine stockists very, very soon, by early March for sure. That's the Pedestrian Ship. Oh my God, what a thing. What a thing. What do you think, Teeps?
I suppose, like, looking at it, tempted, how positionally sensitive do you reckon it is in terms of feet placement with all that bottom contour going on? Because I know the wheels fish is pretty sensitive to where your feet are in terms of getting it working with such a heavy V out the tail.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to pay the price if your feet are too far out the board.
Yeah.
I don't think there'd be a problem with speed there, or even catching, because there's so much lift in the nose. But I think turning it, you know, what I'm sort of bad at is having my feet too high at the board. And I think you do that, you're just going to widen your lines of your turn. The fact that Dave Rastovich will probably stand here down the line and stand right here for a turn, yeah, it's a high performance board. You're going to have to be a decent surfer to really get the most out of it, you know. But high performance in nature, but not necessarily in, you know, like,
quite so extreme.
Yeah. It's friendly, isn't it? Ryan says something like that in the shaping notes. It says like it's kind of a wacky looking board, but it kind of makes sense as an easy rider too.
It's got a slightly flat rocker,
yep,
but it's narrow, so you've got like this high performance.
Is it? What's the width actually? This is the 511. What's the width on the 511? Yeah, because I guess it does. The rail's certainly extended as a 511.
So 511 is 19 and a quarter, so that's...
Yeah, you'd have to say that's narrow.
That's like your Rockstar.
Yeah. Yeah, so it is. It's, yeah, so it's like a... Yeah.
Not a problem, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean, that's wide for a 511 shortboard, but that's certainly narrow for the fact that if you took a data test on how many 511s were sold in the UK, I bet most of them are around 20 and a quarter. Yeah, so it's certainly... but it's not so narrow that you're like, oh, scared, I don't want to ride it. You know, like where I feel like a shortboard, the hard shape at 30 litres, yeah, it just feels a little bit like I wouldn't...
So much more rocker, so much more like... Just looking at that now, you can see it's got a really nice flat section through the middle, so you get loads of...
Yeah, can you see this bit? How this bit's flattened out with the channel as well?
Yeah.
So you've got more curve on the... I mean, I always bang on about that, don't I, with the single concaves, how having your board flatter in the middle. And one of my pet hates in shapes is having shoulder on the rocker here, because when you add concave, and if you've got too much shoulder, which is basically extreme flip in the nose, you dig it, because your rail's sending into the water. So the fact that this is flatter through here, but the rail rocker kind of follows it, the apex of the rail just slightly lifts, and you have a really nice consistent lift to the nose. You can imagine it feeling really clean and swoopy, and just, I can see someone cruising it.
It's interesting that, like, because normally, like you said, you'd lift the rail out of the water as you get towards the nose, whereas here you're actually adding like a rail line at the nose, because you've got that inner rail line almost, sort of the channel.
Well, that's forgiveness right there. You know, because if you think that, yeah, because if you think of a bottom of a rail, and then the ultimate pinch of the rail, now this has got a whole flat spot to go against the water, where if you haven't got anything and you've just got your rail and then single concave, your rail bites into the water, you wash off all your speed, you bog a rail. This is kind of almost like platform. This would help you not mess up. I did notice it, if you watch Dave Rastovich in slow motion, the way he de-weights through the bottom, there's very little regard to the fact that this might dig if he overcooks it when he's on the inside rail, that shows you how much confidence he got in it. And I don't know how long he surfed it for, but think how different this must have been from anything he surfed. And I'm sure he surfed some wacky boards, but it was giving him confidence to shred, and you could tell he felt pretty good about those turns. You know, you could just see it. So yeah, I think it's a really good balance of like cheat code performance with a bit more forgiveness, which is basically where board design's going, and it's in a very elaborate fashion. Like you know, it's kind of like it's always going to be different. I don't think that sort of thing would ever become the norm, but you wonder why.
How does the V height relate to the edge height on the channel as you go through the board? Like, it's a little bit lower.
It's concave.
It's a single with a double in it.
Yep.
And
yeah, it rolls. It rolls at the absolute bottom of the rocker to flat if you're being hyper, but basically a single concave. But then the single
really increases at the front.
Yeah, and you would not be able to get away with that if you didn't kind of have those flat panels. So how else would you do that? You had this channel. It's pretty cool the way he
did similar on. Remember the
it's flipping clever.
We were talking about how much single concrete we put in
The satellite.
The satellite. Remember we were talking about?
Right, so that's quite a good example, because this is definitely going to be easier to surf than the satellite. And not because, because of that, but not, the satellite is less forgiving, for sure, for definite. Like, I look at that satellite, I'm like, God, you know, that's probably a little bit out of my remit. You're going to have to be a bit more perfect.
What's the concave right at the tail?
Well, depends what you're doing on the board, but it's single concave, but then like, because you're taking that channel away, the V's so dramatic. So you can imagine the
V drop.
Yeah, so the width here isn't crazy. Then you've got the pivot from the V as well. So the rail to rail transition. I mean, if you can get on one rail to the other so quickly that you don't have to depend on anything, i.e. a thruster, technically that board is going to be dragless, and you shouldn't slide out. And you can kind of see the way he's switching from rail to rail. One thing you'll notice about really good fish surfers who ride twin fins, and they're really good at it, is Kelly Slater's the same on quads actually. They kind of load up on the rail, they de-weight, and then they load into the rail. So lots and lots of trust, lots and lots of trust. And when you're a not very good surfer, what you tend to do is you load on that rail to do your turn, but you're quite tentative on the release of it, because you feel like you're going to slide out because you're taking off one fin whilst you get onto the other. Where Dave is like bang, you know, he's surfing it almost like a thruster.
Yeah.
but more fluid because there's less drag. So it's like, it makes so much sense. Single concave here, you've got a little bit more hold, and you've got like, you know, you've got the narrowness and the, I'm getting way too excited, aren't I? It's cool. It's really, really cool. It's dramatic and it's borderline caricature design, but it makes lots and lots of sense. Good balances of hold, speed and pivot, basically, which is every surfboard, but this makes blooming sense.
I'm really looking forward to seeing what the Brodens are. I look at it, for me, that's just, it feels a bit...
I'm not good. I tell you what I'm going to do.
You're surfing 5'11".
6.0. I'm going to go normal because and I don't want to put people off if we're keeping this babble in, which I'm, you know, we can't. This one is, yeah. This is 5'11". But if we're keeping this stuff in, the reason why I'm going to go the standard dims is because I think the design makes more sense, slightly more refined, slightly narrower. Yes.
Well, yeah, that definitely looks like a good way, even though.
Yeah, but I say you put a professional surfer on this. He'll be able to surf piddle on this and just be flying. If you have a really thick rail, when you penetrate the water wants to repel it. So if you start going slow, it does, and you slide out. And if you try and dive in too quick on a thick rail, it doesn't quite penetrate the water, and you end up taking a much wider line. So a balance between a rail cutting and a rail holding, this sort of thing really makes sense. It's just, yeah, I'm going to keep going on about it forever. But yeah, this is an exciting board to me.
Interesting to see what he does next.
I know.
It's like when you got like a director comes into like a purple patch, and then each film you're like, what's their next project going to be? Because it's exciting to see what story they're going to tell next.
Well,
and it's like he did the FM.
I'd like to see a smaller, shorter rail line FM.
Yeah.
But not like,
yeah.
you know, like to 6.9 FM, but shrunk down to like 5.10.
Yeah.
I'd love to see something like that with the twins set up, maybe even a quad.
Yeah.
This makes a lot of sense in Brodims and this. That would be really, really cool.
But there'll be something we can't imagine that he's just going to go, what like this one?
Yeah. Well, think of all these shapers surfers he's about to work with. I haven't told you the list. I'll show you the email, but mate, Surfing Raw is going to be surfing this very thing. So like, it's definitely created a star. You know, people have gone, oh my God, there is such thing as a different surfboard. Remember when skate decks sort of went, oh, these are about as good as they can get now. Yeah. Yeah, that's just not happening with surfboards. It's so cool. We love it.
You've got a million variables to play with, haven't you?
Yeah. Yeah. If you're here, like, comment, subscribe. We'll be back soon.
And big up respect. Like, the love is being appreciated.
Thank you, yeah, so much. It's epic to see the channel grow and people loving us, babbling on about what we love, which is surfboards. We have got a couple more different review videos coming up, not necessarily surfboards, so watch this space, let us know what you think. Peace.